Huddle. How's your Monday going, sir?
Oh, it's going pretty good. It's been fairly nice weather out here after we had some crazy winter weather this past weekend. It's funny in the springtime, it always works like that. You get the cold weather when you have the days off, right?
Oh, that's how it happens, man.
But
Yeah, well, I was visiting some family in California, so it was just nice to get a little bit of sun from this from the gray skies in Vancouver, Washington for a while.
so
Let's see. Hey, Tycho, we see you there. Let's get you up on the stage here.
let's see.
Okay, we got him here.
Amazing. Good. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah.
Loud and clear.
Fantastic.
How are you, my friend?
Good. I'm good. I don't know where you guys are in the world, but I was in Chicago this weekend, and yeah, it was very cold, but then it's got better yesterday and today, so it's definitely good. It's joining in with the weather chat, you know.
Yeah, yeah. You have to. One of the things is when you become an adult and you start going to the kid parties, you find yourself talking about the weather and the traffic.
Fair point. Fair point. Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I don't drive, but like, yeah, so just the weather for me, just the weather.
Where do you live in Chicago? I'm out here in Vancouver, Washington.
Cool. Actually, I don't live in Chicago. I'm just working from here for a little bit. Like, one of my best friends lives here. But I'm originally
Oh,
from
very
I'm
nice.
originally from Amsterdam, so from the Netherlands, and I guess yeah, like I'm sort of been a bit in many places, but I would still say Amsterdam is home. So that's where I'm most of the time.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm on the East Coast. I'm near the wonderful city of Washington D.C. So
Nice. Oh, good stuff. It's so
yeah.
great to be here with you guys, and I see Franz Ferdinand is also here. My zesty compatriot.
Yeah, yeah. Let's bring Friends Ferdinand up. If you want to make a request, friends, or we can bring you up here.
Yeah, I just sent him an invite.
Okay, sweet. All right, why don't we get kicked off and started here? So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whoever you are. Thanks for tuning in today. Today, we're going to talk about Zest Protocol, uncollateralized Bitcoin loans for institutional borrowers. Today, we have Tycho and Friends Ferdinand. So, thanks so much for joining, guys. We've been excited since the announcement came out a few weeks back. We've been wanting to get you guys on the space here and talk more about it.
Oh yeah, it's a huge development, and you guys are really seems to be building away. I think you guys might have been kind of building and some secrecy there for a little bit as well. I'd love to hear all about it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have something to show for, right? Before you announce something, I guess. So, yeah, no, I guess we've been building like since about November. I guess that's sort of when we really like started, or when I especially started doing like looking like more full time into like, okay, how would such a thing actually work? And yeah, just kind of iterate our way through. And I think, yeah, it was fairly recent that we actually sort of settled on this design. Like, we had a bunch of other designs, but sort of yeah, we're sort of speaking to potential customers and kind of learning, okay, what do people actually want? And then, yeah, then we figured out this was the way to do it, to go for undercollateralized Bitcoin lending. And then yeah, then we went for it. And I think that was like as early as say mid January. And then it was like, let's just announce it soon so we can talk about it and while we're building. But yeah, in 3 weeks from now, there'll be a test net launch, so you can actually click around and stuff, and hopefully understand much more how it all works, because it's maybe to some extent still a bit of a black box. But yeah, how do you guys want to do it? Do you want to just ask some questions, or do you want me to us to say something about it, or what's the way you do these things?
Yeah, we're gonna just kind of open with an intro of just how you came up with this, solving this problem, why under collateralized Bitcoin, and obviously your target is institutional borrowers, and you guys have been starting to put out a lot of different blogs and written content too. So we're just gonna, as you talk about the intro and introduce the protocol, and you and Franz Ferdinand just talk more about where you see this working in the world of stacks, in the world of Bitcoin and crypto and Web3. Then we'll just kind of riff off some ideas here, and then if anyone has any questions at any point in time, please jump up on the stage and throw some questions out. Does that sound good, Tycho? And
sounds great.
And Huddle too.
Yeah. I'd love to add too. Well, if there was something there that really popped out at you, we can dive into that. I'd like to get y'all's background too, a little bit, like what got you into Bitcoin and stacks as well. So
yeah, no,
whatever jumps out at you there, we can run with that. So
sounds great. No, sounds like the right thing to do. I see Franz Ferdinand just dropped out, but he's back. But I guess I can sort of give it a start. But yeah, I guess my background is in software. So I actually, before that, I studied history. So that's kind of a atypical sort of background for someone in software. But yeah, I was always quite interested in everything happening in the technology space, and then built a company in the CRM space. So yeah, it was sort of very kind of, I guess, web 2. We were mainly focusing on like technology for charities and nonprofits and stuff like that. So that was sort of like the first company I did, and we turned that profitable, and we're sort of VC backed before that, and then I was like, well, let's sort of look at doing something new, right? What's like the sort of thing afterwards to work on, and that was like around the time when sort of DeFi summer came around. Like this was like summer of 2020. And I think that was quite striking, because I had seen like all the kind of ICOs from before, and it was sort of around 2017, like kind of looking around what was happening in the space. And yeah, then in 2020 it was like, hey, these things actually survived this ICO boom, right? And they're like actually making money, right? They are sustaining themselves, right, rather than sort of issuing a new token or doing something else. So that like really sort of struck me. I was like, hey, there's something happening in this space that's like actually working, that's actually backed by something. And yeah, that's sort of when I started looking much more into DeFi, and how to kind of build stuff here in the space. And then that was also around the same time when I got in touch with people building on Stacks, like mainly through Luis, who you probably met, many of you know, at the Stacks Foundation, because he was also in Amsterdam. And and then like mainnet launched, and I was like, hey, this is like really cool, and started mentoring a bit of the accelerator. Because just kind of doing entrepreneurship 101 stuff, right? Because I started a company before, and met like Philip and Chente and all the other great people building DeFi on Stacks, and then at some point I was like, I wanna do this myself too. but yeah, my background is more like sort of product and business development like oriented. So I'm not a software engineer, but I guess that's like a nice bridge to Franz Ferdinand, if you wanna just do the what's your background, and we definitely need to hear the story about Dogecoin as well.
Oh Christ! All right. Well, so it all started maybe we're talking about years ago, many years ago, when I was still a kid, where I wanted to. I started hearing about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and whatnot, and what the thing that I have like this obsession with things when I first hear about them. And when I first heard about Bitcoin, I thought to myself, well, the best way to understand it would be to just read the white paper. Now, it's not extraordinarily hard to understand it. It's a very simple paper. And even you don't even need to read the entire paper to get it. You just kind of need to read the summary. And the main argument is it's just cheaper, and that's it, because you don't have all the baggage that comes from institutions. And but at that time, I was still a kid. I didn't have a credit card, and I couldn't get any Bitcoin in any way. And also, it's not like I had any friends, so there wasn't like any friends that I could buy it from. So the only solution that I had was to like get some through software. But the only way that I could get some, I couldn't get Litecoin either. The only option left that was there was Dogecoin, which it's a silly little thing. And it was back then. It was worth. We're talking maybe maybe less than 1 cent. So I figure I might just mine some and gonna get a bunch of them and just play around with it, see how that works. Again, and I need to figure out how things work. I just can't live without knowing how they work. And I started mining a bunch of them, and eventually, I needed like a full node to like get it to work properly, or actually to like again learn more. And I only had like this crappy little laptop, that was in my room. And because I need a faster internet connection, I need to plug it directly to the internet. I need to plug it into an Ethernet connection. So I went to my living room, which is where the living room where everybody is. I went to the living room where the router is as well. So I plugged it in directly to an internet connection, and I left it there and went to school. When I came back, my parents saw that. They saw the laptop with a bunch of cryptocurrency stuff, and they got my father got incredibly mad at me because back then, I don't know if you remember, but back then it was like stuff for criminals. Like this was like you don't want your kid playing with that stuff. And he got super mad at me. He told me to uninstall everything and get rid of it. And I got rid of it. By chance, I managed to keep the password in a piece of paper, and the key in like a USB key, and I just left it there forever, never touched it again. And then 2021 comes in, and Elon Musk start talking about Dogecoin, and I'm just thinking to myself, okay, it's 1 cent, fine, whatever, doesn't matter, it's nothing. And then it keeps increasing, 2 cents, 5 cents, 10 cents. I'm like, all right, I think I'm gonna go back into my child things, my toys, and let's see if I can find the key and something, and see if I can recover the wallets. Unfortunately, man, those wallets are like they were well done because they still work. And I got access to a bunch of Dogecoin that I left to myself as a kid. And funny thing is, and that's pretty much how like because between now and that time where I mined all of that Dogecoin, I was I was very much against cryptocurrencies, or pretty much not necessarily against them, but I just didn't care and thought they were useless and a waste of time. And this sort of the fact that this explosion in value happened forced me to like get back into it and learn. I learn about it and learn about Bitcoin again, as a grown up now instead of like as a child, and it'll just make a lot more sense now. And then when I saw that stacks was an option for smart contracts on Bitcoin, I thought to myself, well, that's super obvious that like this is pretty much the only option that we have now. And so I got really into stacks, Clarity development too, and the whole thing.
It's an awesome story. That's that's funny. How have you ever wondered if your dad wouldn't have seen your computer, you would be like some crazy Dogecoin person now? Or
Well, I mean, the funny thing is that I think he remembers because when I started learning about stacks again, I didn't tell him for like maybe 5 months. He didn't know anything about it, and then I just kind of it just came up, and I told him that this is what I'm doing now, and I think he got it that maybe he he was wrong back then.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. I mean, I'm kind of glad that he did find it, and so that you didn't own a crazy amount of Dogecoin, and you're here now, and you're building, right? So
Oh
maybe
yeah,
everything happens for a reason.
yeah. I will be making like 20 YouTube videos on like how Dogecoin is gonna reach $1 every day.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Okay, well,
Frank,
yeah, that was cool background.
hey, Huddle, I just have to jump in here and say that I feel like if I was watching some of your YouTube videos, it's kind of like those TikTok videos. This is why Doge is going to go to $10 this year. Oh, love it, man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I guess we can bring it back around to Zest, and if you guys want to talk about that, and some of the problems that you're looking to solve, and what kind of are you excited about recently?
Yeah, no, sure, sure thing. Like I think that would like set the stage nicely to like, get some people involved as well who are listening because I think we haven't really because a lot of people have questions, right? But like maybe good to like do a quick refresher or something like how we got here and maybe I'll say a bit about that and then maybe Franz Ferdinand a bit about like the technical side of things. But yeah, I guess like why it made sense to build this. Like we really started off um, with this sort of insight that that there were these catamaran swaps, right? That was like a big thing, like what happened in last summer was that Friedger and Asteria and I think Jude and well maybe I'm mentioning some people or forgetting some people. I think Marvin was also involved, but they managed to like a sort of trustless swap, right? So you could send someone BTC on the main chain, and then Clarity can read that this BTC has been sent, and then and then basically send something on the Stacks blockchain the other way, right? Based on this sort of input to some extent, which makes sense that something like this is possible, right? Because you have the you have the consensus mechanism, right? Like a proof of transfer, and people transfer in their Bitcoin, and then the Clarity needs to know this and can then give people a Stacks reward if they win the block. So this swap happened, and then that kind of got me thinking, like, hey, this would actually allow you to do DeFi on Bitcoin, or you can basically do you can do DeFi with this kind of stuff, right? Like someone sends Bitcoin, and then we read that on the Stack side, and then we do something on the Stacks blockchain. So for example, you could do something where you send Bitcoin away to someone who's borrowing this Bitcoin, and then this person who's borrowing posts collateral, and then you have a smart contract that just says, okay, this Bitcoin needs to return by this time or under these conditions. And if this happens, it's all fine. And if this doesn't happen, then you can auction the collateral for Bitcoin, which then goes back to the person that was lent the Bitcoin in the first place. So yeah, you can like think about some sort of very basic DeFi kind of stuff built on these catamaran swaps, and that's really what we sort of set off with. And yeah, then initially sort of it made a lot of sense to start looking at over collateralized lending, right? Like so, put up more collateral, and then you can sort of auction this if someone doesn't send this BTC back. And we had made the technical design for this. I mean, Franz Ferdinand was already almost finished with the smart contracts, and been talking to a lot of people who would borrow a lot of Bitcoin, right? Like some of the big institutions out there, like I think CoinShares or Wintermute or these sort of big market makers, and they basically have a business where they borrow crypto and then they do something with it and then they return it having made a yield. And yeah, it was kind of trying to figure out, okay, under what conditions would they borrow Bitcoin? And everyone was saying, look, we don't put any collateral to borrow Bitcoin, or very little, right? Or we're very unlikely going over collateralized to borrow any BTC because BTC yield is so low and everyone has it. So to borrow it, like currently in the market, not many people are really going over collateralized on it. So if you can give us unsecured BTC, we'll take it any day. But this maybe this maybe not. So then we're like, okay, how can we do maybe under collateralized or unsecured BTC? And then I had seen this because I've been looking at all the stuff happening on Ethereum, and one thing that kind of stood out to me was this protocol called Maple Finance, which had sort of figured out a way, or a model rather, to borrow or lend USDC like under collateralized, or in many cases fully unsecured, to institutional borrowers. So this concept of like managed pools. So instead of like on an Aave, right, or on Alex, there's just one pool, right? And if you borrow, you take money from that pool, and if you lend, you put money in that pool, right? And then there's sort of fees accruing in the pool. But what Maple Finance had done was like make multiple pools. Each of these pools is managed by like a professional, right? Say like Alameda or something, or like a fund, or someone who knows a lot of stuff. And they are going to onboard borrowers who can borrow unsecured, right? So Alameda does a lot of business with Wintermute, which is a big market maker, and and they know their balance sheets, so they're like, well, these are good guys, so they can borrow unsecured from my pool, and then people can deposit money in this Alameda pool, and then Wintermute can withdraw and then do stuff with it and make a yield and then give it back. And then we're like, okay, this is pretty interesting. But if you look at the if you look at like the sort of basic infrastructure of Catamaranswaps, you can do the same, right? But then neither the borrower nor the lender needs to be on stacks, right? Because they could just need a Bitcoin address to participate, and then these managed pools actually live on stacks. And then the whole, I guess, technical infrastructure is to a large extent like Bitcoin transactions happening, and then Clarity basically having knowledge of that and then doing stuff that's more computation intense on like the Clarity side. And then we came back to all these funds that had told us before, like, yeah, we take Bitcoin any day, and then everyone was super enthusiastic. So then we're like, okay, like this is definitely what we kind of got to build.
That's awesome. So I really liked how you guys went out there and went and talked to the folks that could be your potential customers, and you figured out that what their needs were. And when you guys first announced it, I was picturing under collateralized, or over collateralized. I was like, oh wow, that's something familiar in the crypto ecosystem and all. And then I heard under collateralized. I was like, oh wow, that's really interesting. I'm like really interested in seeing that come to life. And the other immediate thing that shot off to me is folks that are institutional type people, like you were describing, the market makers, are publicly traded companies that have stock on their balance, or have maybe Bitcoin on their balance sheet maybe one day, that this could be something that really interests them, because they aren't they have enough liquidity, they have enough stature to get something that is under collateralized, right? So
yeah, and that would be really be the start, right? Because I think this is also very much about like a bit more long term, right? Because now the credit gets assessed through, these pool delegates, right? The people who manage this pool, they just know something about these borrowers that other people don't, and in that way, you would sort of say, okay, right, this is the pool I'm going to deposit money in. But we obviously expect that at some point in the future, this will come from on-chain activity or something, right? That these pool delegates can just look at on-chain activity and be like, okay, if it looks a bit like this, then that means that this is like a good borrower, right? And then there's sort of the infrastructure there to lend to them like unsecured or under collateralized, right? So I think this is kind of like how to bootstrap that, or how to sort of get there long term, to just incentivize more on-chain transactions and sort of get that going. But it that will still mean that a lot at the start will be like just off-chain stuff. These institutions is doing their work as they would normally.
I'm curious too. Will you need to implement hyperchains in order for this to be successful, the protocol?
No, not really, because it actually it would actually work quite well if things are speed is not really that much of an issue, I mean, it is to some extent. If you would do liquidations, then you need to have a bit of a bigger, I guess, liquidation bonus because they might not be super instant, but they might take like a little bit of time. But yeah, actually, this Zest protocol is really built like it would actually function very well on like a chain that's a bit slower. It just needs to be very secure, right? Because these loans, they're not necessarily flash loans or something. Like if you look on Maple Finance, which I guess the closest comparable to the types of people that will be lending on Zest or borrowing on Zest. Yeah, they're borrowing for like half a year, or the shortest loans you'll see is like 90 days or something, maybe 60 days. But it's most of the time they're borrowing for it's more like funding, right? They just need these assets to do their work, right? They're going to do arbitrage, they're going to do other things, and then they want those assets for like a longer space of time. So yeah, it would work actually quite well, and I think that fits like nicely the picture of like stacks as well, right? You have like the core, which is very sort of secure, but that means that it trades off some speed, and then and then a bit further away from the core, you can have these hyper chains where things go like super fast, but you have a bit less, not well, a bit less like you have basically fewer nodes, right? So less decentralization. But yeah, and then we would be like one that where you're gonna if you're gonna borrow $10 million in Bitcoin, it's okay to wait 20 minutes, So yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I was gonna ask too, for folks that are listening in the audience, there's also the other side of it where if you're a Bitcoin holder and you want your anyone, I think anybody that holds Bitcoin will be able to be in the Zest protocol and provide Bitcoin and earn a passive yield on that as well, correct?
Yeah. It will depend a bit on the pool, right? Because they're like different types of pools, and they're managed by different kinds of they can have different kind of rules, right? So that's also something you see on Maple Finance on Ethereum, right? It's just sort of a precedent. You have like some pools that are permissioned. So for some pools, you might need to be KYC to be able to deposit in them, because they're going to lend to people who want the people depositing to be KYC, because otherwise it's not for their compliance or something. But then there will be other pools that are like completely open, right? Where anyone can deposit and make a yield on their Bitcoin. I think that's also like the long-term vision of this, that will mean that you can borrow Bitcoin more cheaply on Zest because there's more supply, right? And you don't necessarily need to have an account with a BlockFi or something to be able to make a yield.
Yeah, for sure. And BlockFi, I think one of the things too that gets some really hardcore Bitcoiners a little queasy is the fact that once it kind of goes into BlockFi, you don't know where your Bitcoin is necessarily, right? So Stacks is always able to view what is going on on the Bitcoin chain, so there would always be proper documentation of where the Bitcoin is at any given time and all that, right?
So we put it would be all on chain, right? So you can always like you can always sort of see like who it's going to, and then I guess what they're doing with it, right? Like if you'd really want to check what's going on, and that's the thing, because with BlockFi most people don't really know how the sausage is made, but in the end, like you give your Bitcoin to BlockFi, and what happens most of the time is that they then lend it out under collateralized, right, to in a sort of similar way, or maybe they do other things with it, but yeah, you don't really know.
When the Zest tokens are minted proportionally to the Bitcoin, are there other things that you can do with the Zest token?
Yeah, so when it comes to the Zest token, of course, there's like it's a governance token, right? So it's like it's used to govern like certain risk parameters in the protocol. So I just need to quickly make sure my friend's dog is not like going to eat my soup here. But just distracted for a moment. But you're looking very intensely at the but yeah, so the Zest and also the Zest tokens, like we will like they will be used so per pool, right? So I mentioned that there are these managed managed pools, right, by these institutions. Now, if there's a default in this pool, then that there will be like a sort of protection layer in that pool of certain funds, and those funds will be, let's say 5% of all the outstanding loans in the pool, say something like that, right? 5 to 10%. And if there's like a default in the pool, then this protection layer gets hit first, right? To make sure that it's not immediately, people are not immediately losing their Bitcoin, right? But there's like a sort of first line of defense. And this first line of defense, we will likely, at least for part, use the Zest token in that, right? So if there's like a default happening in one of the pools, then we'd auction some of these tokens from this protection layer, which will in part be these Zest tokens to kind of cover, to basically make the lenders whole again. This is like one incentive to make sure that these pool delegates onboard the right borrowers, because they are the ones that are largely putting money in this protection layer. But anyone can also stake in here, right? So if you are like, okay, I hold a bunch of Zest tokens, and let's say Alameda has a pool, right? And you're like, well, I think Alameda is amazing. I'm going to stake my Zest tokens in the protection layer of the Alameda pool, and people who stake in there, they'll make like a portion of all the interest that's generated, right? So you could basically take a bit more risk by staking in the pool, and that will be like Zest token.
Did you say that anyone can get Zest token, or is it only for the institutions?
No, anyone can get Zest token. Yeah.
Oh,
anyone,
okay.
Anyone can.
Oh,
it would just be an
really
SRP10
cool.
token.
Okay.
And still a bit TBD how we'll like go about distributing it. Of course, we would like try to have these institutions that manage the pool have like buy-in in it, right? Because if they have a bunch of Zest token, they're more likely to also act in good faith to the protocol. But yeah, we obviously want the community involved as well, right? So like, we could look at doing something like an IDO or something on Alex or something along those lines. So I guess you heard it here first, but it's not fully decided. But yeah, that's just more like a bit of an overview.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, if anything that you guys don't want to share right away, you guys can keep some stuff.
No, we're here for sharing. We're here for sharing. So no worries.
Well, yeah, I know we appreciate you dropping some alpha here, Tycho.
Yeah, of course, for the faithful listeners and people in here. So no, definitely. But do you guys have some more questions, or shall we? I don't know. We can maybe. Franz Ferdinand, you want to maybe say a little bit about like the kind of Catamaranswap side and the stuff that you've been you've been working on with together with Yoson as well, who's by the way in European time zone, so he's not here, but otherwise would have loved to share this evening with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a challenge to work with Bitcoin data, because it's a lot of it's a lot of bytes and codes, and dealing with all kinds of things that aren't necessarily obvious when you're coding. I don't know, I guess in other languages. I mean, you were talking about because it's so restrictive on the fact in the sense that we don't have a lot of space, and we don't have a lot of execution time, and we have to make sure that every single action and line of code is worth it, or actually in a way it's kind of like you have to think about every single line of code is incredibly expensive, even to the letters, each letter that you use, it's going to cost you and end up costing you a lot. So it's one of those interesting things about working with Clarity, and I think most blockchain development.
No, that's a great way to put in. That goes into the security of why Stacks is anchored to Bitcoin, right? I'm curious too, because I know there was a lot of talk about Catamaranswap, and people were using it back in summer and fall. I know I used it a couple times, but lately, since the year has started, I haven't heard a lot of people talking about Catamaran swap, and it's a big deal. So, is there going to be more usage of the protocol? Do you think more or some other protocols that are building on stacks are going to integrate what Catamaran Spot built?
Yeah, so one problem with like Catamaranswap is that um it so let's say there are different versions of transactions. There's different types of transactions on Bitcoin. So you have SegWit, and then let's say you have Taproot now. Taproot is more modern and standard. Actually, you have SegWit and then non-SegWit. Um, SegWit is actually more modern and common than non-SegWit. And one of the reasons why it's people have to want to use non-SegWit to actually use it because it's not the standard thing. Like if you open Electrum or Trezor wallet, the standard thing that you're going to get is it's a SegWit transaction. And the problem is that Catamaranswap works with non-SegWit. So you have to purposefully want to use non-SegWit to use a Catamaranswap. And what we're doing is going to bring more interest into actually updating the Catamaranswap so that we can use SegWit and or Taproot. And so it's not like we're not forcing people into using a certain kind of Bitcoin wallet so that they can use a Catamaranswap. They can just use what's already most popular out there. So with what we're doing, we're going to bring a lot more interest into Catamaranswap just because we're gonna have to bring updates to it so that it can be more accessible.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was thinking too. Is there anything that you guys are anticipating that kind of needs to be done before maybe some aspects of your protocol get going, or maybe it would help kickstart? I was just in my head, I was thinking of the Hero wallet, maybe having direct support for Bitcoin, or the XBTC Bitcoin bridge. I know that's in development. Or any of those things that are intriguing to you guys, or you guys kind of are hoping that they come quick, or?
Yeah, definitely. Franz Ferdinand, do you wanna speak to that?
So I think the one thing that would be interesting would be to maybe have a hero wallet that's like made in such a way that it's made for people who are not going to be holding STX on their wallet, because that way we can sponsor transactions so that somebody else can pay for those gas fees. And because right now we're sort of supposing we're limited by the fact that if somebody holds Bitcoin, they're mostly just going to be holding, they're mostly just going to be using a Bitcoin wallet. And if we had like a sort of wallet, a hero wallet that had capabilities for sponsored transactions, that would be fantastic because we don't have to be supposing things. We can sort of just onboard people much more easily. And again, with the if the hero wallet had Bitcoin capabilities, then it would be easy to onboard more people as well. Because again, we're just supposing that people who have Bitcoin, they only have a Bitcoin wallet, which can be it makes it very annoying to like work. with it, because it just puts a lot of limits. But yeah, I mean, if a hero wallet had Bitcoin and had Bitcoin capabilities, it would be so much more easy to work with this.
That makes sense. Zero, you have any other questions or?
Well, I wanted to say I uploaded a diagram to show what's the difference between SegWit and non-SegWit, and so which is the segregated witness. So if any folks want to take a look at that, I put it here in our in our Twitter space. But if anyone has any questions at all, does anyone want to come up to the stage here? Any takers? Let's see. One of the other questions that I did want to ask is, so it sounds like it's similar to Maple Finance, and you'll have the pools of allocations. As far as the future of once this is up and running, once people are using the protocol, something that I have seen lately on Ethereum, and I don't know if this, I would suspect this will happen to other blockchains and other ecosystems as they continue to mature. But there's this arms race to get as many governance tokens as possible, because like Curve Finance, Wi-Fi, Yearn Finance, if you have the biggest allocation of the governance tokens, you get to decide the protocol fees and some of the allocations of the pool. Is that something remotely even on the radar when you guys get hyper growth, and as more people have this governance token, what kind of gamification they can pull with the regards to the allocations of the funds or the fees on the protocol?
Yeah, for sure. I think these are things that I've thought about quite a bit, because I guess I've been like looking at a lot of these tokens on Ethereum, and buying a lot of them as well as investments, or just kind of playing around with them, and the whole like vote escrow stuff on for example Curve is quite interesting, that also like Yearn is using now. Maybe for the people who are not familiar, it's basically um it's certain it's a certain mechanism by which you're basically having DAOs compete over your governance token, so that they can influence the protocol to favor their DAO more. Right? It's I think that's like the sort of shortest way to maybe look at it. Um, and yeah, I mean, these things are definitely very interesting. I think just right now at the start, we're just trying to go for the simplest, sort of tokenomics as well, like possible, and then you can always change these things later as like those become actual levers for growth. But yeah, we definitely be looking at those things more, but yeah, initially, it's I think for us the first thing is really to make sure that we launch and that this works, right? I think that's like step one. And then step two is like getting to, say 50 to 100 million in originated loans, right? And then it's also like clear to the big people that it works. And then from there on, like, okay, how do we actually grow that then, much bigger to really become the kind of default, place where you would lend and borrow BTC for institutions, right? And if you look at Maple Finance, right, they launched say 9 months ago, and then I managed to do, I think, it's approaching $1 billion in volume now. So I guess that would be something we would be aiming for as well, because like USDC lending market is, or stablecoin lending market is about as big as the BTC one currently. Like it's about the same volume. So yeah, that's sort of where we really would be aiming for. And then it's like, how do you get there? And then probably thinking more about tokenomics would be one of those levers, like when the time is right.
Yeah, and I haven't asked this to other guests. Typically, I used to ask it when we did the Builder series about the smart contract audits. I know you guys went through that audit. Were there any like a major, or were there any informational vulnerabilities that stood out where you thought, well, I thought we covered off on that, but I'm glad we did the audit?
Oh, you mean doing like an audit of our smart contracts?
Like the smart contract security audit.
Right. Yeah. No, we haven't done such a thing yet. So
Okay.
that's like
Okay.
so we're still like, or we, I mean, mainly Franz Ferdinand and Joost and I'm just like doing whatever I can to help, you know. Yeah, we've been working on the smart contracts like yeah, pretty much well, I guess nonstop, and then it's like, yeah, and hopefully in about 3 weeks we can get a testnet live for like people to play around with, and then we'd also be looking at getting some feedback, you know, especially from you guys, and like, you know, there's some other like key people in the ecosystem, right? Like, think for example people like Jeff and Hank, right, who are very like know their stuff about Clarity, like some people at Hero, and you know, some of the other DeFi builders, to just sort of kind of get their feedback and then implement all of that, and then we would go to an audit. And so yeah, we were currently setting this up, so speaking to all these auditing firms and trying to get on their timetables and so on. But yeah, that will then happen afterwards, because that's like will be
Hey,
very
Tycho,
important.
I think your internet is cutting. You sound like you're cutting in and out.
I see. Is it still the case?
Nope, that's better. You probably were pacing.
Right. No, I was sitting down, but if it happens again, definitely interrupt me. But where did I?
He was making sure the dog wasn't getting his food.
Yeah, no, I ate the food. I ate the food when Franz Ferdinand was talking, just to make sure.
Hey, are you guys going to be able to? I don't know if Chainlink oracles are going to be ready by then. Is that something that you'll be able to use?
Yeah, I mean, maybe Franz Ferdinand, you want to say something about this? I mean, I guess we rely a little bit less on oracles than maybe other protocols, but I mean, still for some things. But
yeah, we won't be as reliant on the Chainlink, because what they provide us with is price feeds, and we're mostly dependent on whether payments have happened and repayments and Bitcoin payments have happened. So in a way, it's sort of like the Bitcoin network, sort of like our Oracle for the most part.
Yeah, that makes sense, right?
yeah, we won't really be using oracles in liquidations, right? That's maybe a bit different from, say, Arcadico. They need to know like the prices of SDX all the time, right? Because because if it does a certain thing, then people's vaults will need to be liquidated. But for us, because it's like under collateralized, like the value of the collateral won't determine whether the loan will be liquidated or not, right? It will be based on whether someone is making their interest payments. So if someone is actually paying their interest, and if they're not paying their interest for some time, then we'll just be like, hey, what's up? And then if they're gone or defaulted, then yeah, we'll have to liquidate them.
Yeah, I was curious. I was thinking about, you know, using your protocol and the fact, like, okay, if I was sending in Bitcoin, what kind of currency, or what are y'all looking for the interest to be paid out in, and then for you know, people that need to pay back their loans? Is it
in Bitcoin? In Bitcoin.
Just, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. So it's big. It's not going to be another token. It's not going to be Zest token or something. It's going to be Bitcoin. So yeah, you don't need to use stacks, right? If you're going to lend out your Bitcoin on Zest, you will just be sending away your BTC to an address that we specify in the interface, and then you'll be getting periodic BTC payments, and then at the end of the line, you'll get your Bitcoin back. So yeah, that's very much how it works, and then we use the Zest token to, say, incentivize these pool delegates in the middle, right? So they make like a cut of all the interest, but instead of giving them the Bitcoin cut, right, which is coming in, we're keeping that Bitcoin for ourselves in the protocol treasury, and then minting Zest token and then giving it to them, like proportional to the value of that, right? So make sure that they're like fully bought into the protocol.
That's awesome. I'm calling it now. I have a feeling Michael Saylor is going to be a user of Zest at some point here in the
future. Working on it. All our secret works, That's you're just leaking it all.
I mean, I watch his video every day. I don't know if you do. I watch it every morning. It's incredibly motivating.
I was just looking at the tweet exchange with Elon and Michael Saylor, and Michael Saylor was talking about Bitcoin, and Elon said, "Isn't it just it's so unpredictable what you were going to say?" And then I thought, oh, yeah, this dude is a perma Bitcoin bull. I think it's just been phenomenal, and to see him, if he starts using Zest Protocol, dude, that would be amazing.
No, absolutely. And I mean, they've been saying that they want to start generating a yield on their Bitcoin at some point, right? Like it would, and that's like one of the interesting things here too. Like all this Bitcoin is just sitting there with these institutions, but in most countries, like money managers are not allowed to just hold cash on their balance sheet, right? They need to do something with it because they should be making a yield. So they have like a fiduciary duty to deploy their cash and earn yields. And I think if Bitcoin is really money or ultrasound money or whatever you want to call it, then then it would fall under the same category, and people will need to start making some yields, some zesty yields.
Yeah. A lot of the Bitcoiners, you hear them talk about, look, their eyes are on the bond market and how large of a market cap that is. And one thing that bonds do have is the fact that you have stable yields coming in, and people build whole portfolios around that you have something stable, and that's what Bitcoin is designed for.
Absolutely. And if it's like going to be, if Bitcoin is pristine collateral, right? Like what's even more pristine collateral? It's like, that's a Bitcoin bond, right? That yields in Bitcoin. So that would be like a further step for like Zest, is to, if you're lending your Bitcoin, right, in a world where many more Bitcoiners also have Stacks wallets, or where there's a wallet that does the same, right? Like what Franz Ferdinand was saying. And we can issue like a receipt for this loan, right? Like, and then, you basically have like a tokenized receipt for this loan, which is basically what a bond is, right? So then you have Bitcoin bonds. And and then those you could use again as collateral to borrow stuff, right? And then you're like really, really doing things. But yeah, you can only really get there when there's a real like Bitcoin economy. And currently the people willing to borrow are these market makers or funds. But as you sort of start expanding, like there's a use case for participants in the Bitcoin economy to start borrowing Bitcoin as well, right? Like say miners, right? They want to borrow some Bitcoin now, then they can pay for their liabilities, right? They can pay for their electricity in cash, etc. But because they know they're going to make this Bitcoin back over time, right? They can like programmatically see like, okay, this is how much Bitcoin will come in over the next month. They just don't know what it will be worth, right? So they could borrow Bitcoin and sell it to effectively lock in the price and sort of de-risk a bit. Then I think we'll see that a lot in like these countries that are adopting Bitcoin as legal tender, right? So for example, El Salvador, or there'll be a lot of businesses there that will have a lot of Bitcoin on their balance sheets, or it will be coming in, and then it's like, but they also have liabilities in dollars or fiat because they're transacting with the non-Bitcoin world, and then you might want to borrow some Bitcoin to instead of borrowing cash, having all your loans in cash, for example, or denominated in dollars rather. So that's like where we sort of see it really going. But yeah, we need to start with where the demand is, and that's these funds, and get them some under-collateralized Bitcoin.
Hey, the last question here, and then we'll wrap up. Does the Zest token have a capped supply?
Yeah, so this is actually something we're still very much figuring out. So this is yet undecided. I guess something we're sort of in the process of doing now, like how will we allocate this token, and how will it work? So the real answer there is we don't know, but if we know, you'll be the first to hear it.
Well, you'll have to come back on and leak some more alpha, but we really appreciate you guys jumping on the space today, tonight, wherever you are,
Thank you.
looking forward to the full release here, and it's probably in a couple of months or a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so a couple of weeks we can go to testnet, and then you can really experience it firsthand. But yeah, that's still testing, right? And then
and should we just
a couple of months of auditing, and then we're there.
Sweet. Should we just look out on your Twitter and your website for more information?
Yeah, definitely. Like you can leave if you want to do email, then you can leave your email on zestprotocol.com. But otherwise, yeah, if you follow me, Franz Ferdinand, or Zest Protocol itself on Twitter, that's where you'll find all the stuff. And there's also our Discord, of course, where all the Zesties are gathering and united to share in all the exciting announcements that we have.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys. And Huddle, any last words there? Friends Ferdinand, any last words?
Well, not really. So good. I was gonna say something I was gonna regret, but so I just said let's not.
Stay zesty, everyone. Stay zesty.
Stay zesty.
Sure.
It.
Yeah, appreciate you guys coming on, and yeah, we're gonna be on the lookout for Testnet. I'm gonna be looking to try and contribute and help out any way I can. You guys are building some serious stuff here, and really excited about it. Everybody here, give them a follow if you don't already, and hop in the Discord. This is going to be really important for the growth of stacks and Bitcoin. So,
no, love it. You heard it here first. So, yeah, great fan of this, and looking forward to whatever the next show is.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, you guys have a great day and good night. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Zero Authority is a community of people who believe in open source and permissionless systems. Remember why you started.